It is another beautiful morning, except you can't see the mountains. Giving you a slow panoramic, how you can see the further and further in the distance they go. That one's a little further than this one, so you can barely see that one. And there's more mountains over here, and there's more mountains over there. They're just completely invisible. You can't even see them. And it's been like this for about a month now here in Utah. And it occurred to me yesterday after I took that video, just up on the foothills over here for the other tour guides traversing the uncanny valley and Sherpas ascending Mount Plasma, that they can take anyone they want over there and just kind of mosey on by nonchalantly and see if they notice the plasma fired trees. It occurred to me as I was walking and talking with God, you know how I do, that people are seeing more and more, as that song says by Tool, repugnant is the creature who would squander the ability to lift his eyes to heaven, conscious of his fleeting time here. In that video that I took yesterday, it's sunset, so the sun is actually over there, and it's a pinkish color, and you can obviously see there's a lot of smoke. Right here, it's higher on the horizon before it even comes over, so there's less smoke between us and the sun at the sunrise than over there when it's at sunset, directly almost level with the horizon. My point is, every day people see more and more that their time here is more and more fleeting. So they have more and more reason to lift an eye to heaven, because they are more and more conscious of their fleeting time here, which makes them more and more repugnant every day, that instead they turn their eyes to the ground, just like yesterday when I was taking that video and you saw those people playing tennis. I heard one of them go, "Oh, that was a great volley, great volley." The more and more they see the world changing around them, it brings to their attention that we're about to get some big answers to questions that they never even asked. Because they spent their life focused on the material world, which blinds them to the spiritual world. Like watching video games your whole life, and then shit's happening out there in the real world and your eyes don't even work because you've been glued to a television that's that far away from your face. And you've been watching an artificial version of reality glued to the material world, and as you're seeing, our time here is fleeting. Repugnant is a creature who would squander the ability to lift his eye to heaven, conscious of his fleeting time here. This makes people all the more conscious of their fleeting time here, and they have to turn their eyes toward other things that keep them focused on anything but this, anything but the reality around them. So they engage in busy work like sports, trying to make another dollar, figuring out anything they can do to distract themselves from the reality that's surrounding them, and has been for I don't know how long, a month now, since I made that first live stream from my rooftop here and told you this smoke, aka whatever it is, you can't smell it, okay? It's not smoke. Whatever it is, it's not smoke. You can't smell it. I went by a campfire or a campfire or a chimney fire. Anyway, you could smell as you pass by somebody's fireplace actual smoke in the air, which makes a distinction between, wow, I can actually smell smoke. Then what the hell is all this shit that you see all over and you can't even see through, so thick that it's blocking the mountains? Oh, I don't know. Let me go play some tennis and volleyball and shit. Those people that never paid attention to the spirituality and the bigger questions like, who are we? Where are we? What are we? Where are we? Where are we supposed to go after here? What are we supposed to be doing here and now in order to get there then? Are having to avert their gaze from the world around them that's showing them we're about to get the big answers to the big questions that you never even spent a moment of your life asking. And because you paid zero attention to those bigger questions all throughout your life and instead focused on the material world of getting more money and playing more sports and pleasuring yourself more, they're having to avert their gaze and become even more repugnant and squander the ability to turn their eyes to heaven because they become more and more conscious of their fleeting time here. And that's who you saw playing tennis yesterday on the court. Oh, sure, there's reason to enjoy yourself while you're here. Heck, I went to the hot springs yesterday. And I don't even draw people's attention to the things that I could teach them because I know they're not interested. That's who we're surrounded by, is people who don't pay attention to this. I just thought that lyric from that Tool song was very appropriate now. Repugnant is the creature who would squander the ability to lift his eyes to heaven, conscious of his fleeting time here. The more and more of these things that come into our field of view, the more and more people have to point their gaze and focus their attention on the ground rather than lifting their eyes to heaven, because they can see we're about to get the big answers to the big questions that they didn't spend a second of their life even asking. So they know what the answer is and what it means for them. It means you lose, you failed. And as this continues to happen, it separates us into two different worlds. The knows and the know-nots, whose daily life experience is going to be even greater than the difference between the haves and the have-nots, the rich and the poor, who can live just the other side of the train tracks from one another in two different worlds, and their daily life experience is two different experiences. The know-nots, who have to narrow their aperture and their field of view to focus on something that looks like more like the rear view in the past and the world they once knew by playing tennis or volleyball or whatever else they can distract themselves with to keep their attention from taking this into account. Their daily life experience is becoming smaller and smaller, trying to focus on shit that resembles the world they once knew as the world around them becomes a whole new world that they don't recognize. They know what the answer to these big questions that we're about to receive. They know what it means for them. It means you should have paid attention to the bigger questions throughout your life. And because you didn't, you can't look at what's happening around you. And instead you look at things that distract you from what's happening around you. I'm only looking at that mountain because this one doesn't quite show it. That one's the middle mountain. This mountain over here is even further where you can't quite see it. There's a mountain there though. You can see the ridge of it right here. That's the line of the mountain ridge right there. And the mountains across the lake, you can't see them at all. For a month now it's been like this here in Utah County. You'd think people might be talking about it. You'd think they might be doing something besides playing tennis and volleyball. Nope. The ones who keep playing tennis and volleyball and focusing on things that don't matter and distracting themselves with minutia of the material world know that the reality is about to smack them upside the head, and they paid no attention to the bigger questions. And you know what those bigger questions ultimately result in? The answer is character development. Being a good person, doing the right thing. That's the answer to all those spiritual questions of who are we? Where are we? What are we supposed to be doing here? Underlying all those questions, they all pretty much come to the same answer. And people that focused on the material world and forgot all about that being a good person stuff, yeah, it's hocus pocus. We tell kids to do unto others as you'd like to have done unto yourself. But then we get into the dog eat dog, kill or be killed world. Biggest dog, biggest bark, biggest bite. And we enter into capitalism, where you try and give as little as possible and take as much as possible in each transaction, and the difference between the two is your profit margin, and you're always encouraged to expand your profit margin. That means give a little bit less and take a little bit more in each transaction, and their relationships with other people become transactional relationships. And that's what they did for their whole life. And the answer to these big questions are not going to be something they want to hear. So they turn their eyes to the ground and become even more repugnant to God as a creature who would squander the ability to lift his eyes to heaven, conscious of his fleeting time here, even more so every day. But in order to avoid that entering into their conscious awareness, they have to narrow their aperture and distract themselves with things that don't matter, because they know that the things that really do matter are about to have consequences. Delayed reaction is all we're experiencing. Those consequences we knew would always come, but we thought we could put them off a little bit longer and a little bit longer, and we did that for so long we thought, nah, those consequences will never come. So it's time to pay the Pied Piper. And there's people all around us who know they have nothing but debt. They have no assets in that bank account. They have no God money. They're broke. They're morally bankrupt. And they know it. And that's why they can't afford to pay attention to what's going on around them. They don't have the electricity. They don't have that many calories to burn when it comes to thinking about the things that really matter, because they don't have any exercise in that area. They decided to pay attention to the material world, finances, markets, and turn all of their relationships with other people into transactional, what can you do for me? I, me, my. And those consequences of living that life are about to come around on them, like the song Cutthroat. You're a natural. You gotta be so cold to make it in this world. That's the song Natural. The song Cutthroat has the same underlying theme and message. And those people that have been living their lives cutthroat, those people that are a natural fit for this world, because they just blended in to go along, to get along, and never tried to raise the bar or actually do anything that mattered, we are all about to receive our just rewards, and internally they know that. That's why they can't afford to pay attention to what's going on around us, and they're just going to try and go through the motions and finish off the rest of their life without ever paying attention to any of that stuff that really matters, and hope they can get out the back door of life without any consequences. Even as the world around them, like the walls closing in, literally you can't even see the mountains as these walls close in around you. Some of us are looking forward to those big answers to those big questions. Others, not so much. Repugnant is the creature who would squander the ability to lift an eye to heaven, conscious of his fleeting time here.